paid at the time of termination or retirement. So I took that to mean that it's an early retirement incentive plan. Well, so after my sending a letter and having several conversations with Mr. McGee, he responded and made the determination that no, this didn't fall under that. The intent of the board was that this was to be something to help the teachers out at the end of the year that planned on retiring. And I contend that it's not something to help out, it's an early retirement incentive. An incentive means you would like the person to retire early. It benefits the school because I'm one of the highest paid, people in the district, and therefore it's going to save the school a considerable amount of money if they hire a first-year teacher to replace me, or if they hire no one to replace me. So as an incentive, the board offered this incentive for me to retire. So I don't look at it as a gift or something nice to do for the teachers. I look at it as a way to get me to retire instead of continuing on, an incentive to retire, therefore saving the district some money. I had no idea when I applied for this, because I had not investigated it, that the board would have to match these funds. Turns out that that's the case. So I'm not asking, I wasn't coming to the board and saying I want an additional $8,900. It just so happens that that's the way it works. But once again, it goes back to what was stated in the contract, which was very ambiguous. It doesn't say much of anything other than if you have 25 years and 20 years in the district, you get an early retirement incentive of $8,040. Doesn't say how you can use that. Doesn't say how you're going to get that. Then I was told early in March, or after all this came to light, that, oh, there's an application that you have to fill out. Well, it doesn't say there's an application. It says you apply by April 1st. Apply by April 1st. I mean, does that mean an application? I didn't take it to mean that. I figured that I applied when I wrote my letter of resignation in September and said that I would like to be considered for this early retirement incentive because I have the 25 years and the 20 years in the district. So there's just a lot of language that's missing there, and the board interprets it one way, or Mr. McGee does, and I interpret it a totally different way. So that's where we stand on the issue at this point.
So, with regard to my response to Mr. Hernandez's claim, I wrote, and I believe in the package of that letter, that the school district had not intended for this to be treated as termination pay, but was more or less looked at in terms of a one-time lump sum payment as, early retirement incentive that was looked more to as a thank you for the years of service. Mr. Janago is right in the fact that the language is pretty bad. It has created a scenario where you can have views of interpretation, such as the view that we came away with at the negotiation table when we worked this out between management and the unit, that this was the amount that we were going to grant to the members. But I can understand fully why Mr. Janago sees it, that he would like to be able to roll it into the CRS program. And in so doing, it would require the school district to come up with further additional monies. Because that further additional monies was never talked about or defined, it leaves it back to what was the actual intent. And I fall back to the position of past practices of the district. We have provided retirement benefits like this to other employees, none of which we have rolled into TRS and done as a match. And therefore, we're falling back to what was the actual intent when this was put forth management was the one that brought this item forward in the negotiation of the last contract. And so I fall back to that position, that was the rationale raising the pensions and the denial of the claim.
I just have to say something. I was the one who really wanted this from you. Mr. Finley and I ran the negotiation committee, and this was one of the things that I felt was really important that we add to our negotiation, because since I had been on the board, there had been years that teachers who had come, who like you, Gary, had put in 25, 30 years, and were asking the board for an incentive. It began, actually, I think, and the amount came from looking at 2 years of insurance premiums, that was the amount that they were asking for. And there were years that it was granted, and then there were years that it wasn't granted. And my frustration on being on the board was that I didn't see any consistency here. I mean, we had valuable teachers who were retiring. Some of them came asking, others did not. There was just no consistency. And I felt like if one teacher was worthy of it, that any teacher that had, given the district that many years should have that opportunity to have that incentive. So when I sat on the negotiation committee, that was one of the things that I really wanted to see. And I can tell you, Gary, that, this really was meant to be a thank you, an incentive to the teachers who had put in all the service that you have throughout the year, and were given an opportunity to have it. And it wasn't, when it was negotiated with the unit, we just were looking at that amount of money. We weren't looking at the double-sided. And Mr. McGee is right. As we look at it now, the language is a little vague. It's the first time it's ever been in the contract. And I'm sorry for that. I really am, because this by no means means that we don't appreciate what you have done for the district. You are a valuable employee, and always have been. But from my point of view, I was there, and it was I that initiated the language of which we talked about with the unit. This is what we had always done in the past for those that had come, and so that was how it was put in the package. And in the past, it was just that amount of money. Nothing was matched, as Mr. McGee said, with the TRS. It was just, and it was given a lump sum amount at the end of their teaching career. So, because that was the intent that we brought to the board, that would still be my sentiment. And I'm really sorry that there's this confusion and about it. I think that when we sat at the table, we wanted this to be something that the teachers would feel good about. That we as a district, even though we couldn't offer much, were able to offer a little bit. But that certainly was the amount of money that we had in our minds when we were looking at the budget. And so, is there any other questions? And then we'll go back to Mr. Kuchar.
Okay, can you explain how the TRS works?
The teacher retirement system. Okay, within the teacher retirement system, an employee gets paid by the school district, and they end up contributing between 6 and 7% of their pay to the TRS program, so they make a payment into it. At the same time, the school district does what is called out of its retirement fund, which has nothing to do with the general fund, which is a fund that you accrue in August. Out of that retirement fund, the school district makes a payment to TRS also, a little over 7%, pretty close. So what happens in TRS is this money goes in to the state, and the state takes that money and it invests it, does whatever to try to become a solvent retirement system. So that when that teacher then reaches their years of service, as they decide to retire, they can count on their 3 highest years of service counting towards what their percentage of pay they will receive from TRS, whether it's 25 years of service or 30 years of service, depending on their length, will determine what it is that they're going to get out as a retirement check from the state of Montana. So that's what the TRS system does. Now the TRS.
I just wanted to when the person retires, there are three options that they can choose in TRS as well. They can choose to include their termination pay, which bumps up their average. They can choose to not include it, and then there's a third option that is totally separate. So just information, and they do have three options that they can choose.